Hello everyone, this is the Sports Spiral, and I'm back. I will be doing commentary again for these weekly videos. Let's have some more time now, so I'm going to go and show you kind of what happened in the NFL and college football over the past week now, and then we're going to have a look at some things like the playoff picks and the picks for next week. So, here it's NFL Week 12. I did pretty good with my picks for this week. As far as the results for this one, the Cleveland Browns upset the Buccaneers. Buccaneers not looking good, but it's still enough to be leading their division. That is arguably the weakest division in the league right now. Some other news, the Jaguars beat the Ravens in an upset. Tucker couldn't get the 67-yard field goal. For a second, you thought he had it, but wow, it's crazy that they even put him out there for that one. And so yeah, overall, not too crazy of a week in the NFL, but some upsets like those that I just mentioned. And we'll see how things continue in the NFL. And then college football, it's rivalry week, always full of upsets. There's some games where, it's a coin toss every year, even if one team's ranked 10th and the other is unranked. So you never know with rivalry week. Like you saw Mississippi State, they beat Ole Miss in that one. And then you had a showdown between FSU and Florida, but FSU did pull that one out. And then Georgia was struggling against Georgia Tech early, but they pulled away at the end of the game. And then Michigan, they pounded Ohio State, especially in the second half. This will be very interesting for Ohio State's playoff resume. Michigan, they're in now. They're second place. They're in the playoff. It's confirmed. And then, South Carolina against Clemson. Ever since Trevor Lawrence left for Clemson, they've been down, 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 down. Just saying. So I think Trevor Lawrence really was the key for Clemson. And yeah, South Carolina pulls off the upset for that one. Very interesting indeed. Alabama, they didn't really have much trouble with Auburn. Auburn hired Hugh Freeze as their new head coach to see if, they can maybe finally get back to being the ranked team after a few years of being in the bottom. Oregon, they were kind of hanging on the edge of the playoff. Their hopes were very slim. They're now none, and they missed the Pac-12 championship with a loss to Oregon State, their rival. TCU, they made a really good statement against Iowa State with a blowout. I think it really pushes them to see, if they maybe lose the conference championship, that they could still make it in, even though they're a Big 12 team. So, yeah, and then you had LSU. They had a chance to make the playoff. They do not anymore. They lost to Texas A&M, which has been playing bad this year. So, yeah, it's a shame for LSU. They'll have to see if they can put together a more cohesive season next year. USC got a needed win versus Notre Dame. Kansas State beat Kansas to make the Big 12 championship. And overall, a pretty good week of picks for me, but lots of unpredictability with the rivalry week part of it. So here are my playoff picks. These are the same as what they have right now. So I've got Georgia at number one. They made a really good case for themselves just throughout the season. They've been dominant, by far the most dominant team. But Michigan, they had a really good win against Ohio State. They pounded the second team in the country, so that was really good. And then USC, I think, yes, they slip in with that win, and it's winning in, win to stay in for USC. And then you have TCU that moves up a spot. And then in fifth place, I had Ohio State, and then sixth, I had Alabama, just like the real rankings. Now, before I tell you my actual picks, I'm going to tell you kind of the scenarios here for the conference championships, because there are a lot of different things that could happen. And Alabama does have a path to the playoff, in my opinion, since their two losses combined were only 4 points against teams that are still in the top 15 right now. So I don't think they can really be penalized all that much for those losses. Alabama, they're going to be cheering for Utah and Kansas State because they need USC to lose. USC will be dumped out. There'll be a two-loss Pac-12 team, two losses to the same team. No need to consider them. And then you have TCU. If they lost, maybe by a score to Kansas State, there'd be a 12-1 Big 12, not champion, but there'd be 12-1, and with a loss to Kansas State, really close. So I think they would stay in. They would slip down to 4, and then at that, or maybe they would even stay at 3, and then at that point, Ohio State would get in. But Alabama can make it in. They need TCU to lose, and one score won't be enough. Some people think it needs to be a blowout entirely. I don't think so. I think the CFB historically they've shown us that they really like the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. So I think if TCU loses by 2, 3, or more scores, so like 14, 21 points, then Alabama could be considered. I think that is definitely possible. And then Ohio State, they just need USC or TCU to lose, preferably USC, of course. So I think Ohio State still has a legitimate chance for the playoff. But if everyone wins during the conference championship, I think Ohio State stays out. And then USC, they just need to win their championship and they're in. Same with TCU. They could lose, but they don't want to risk it, so TCU needs that win as well. And then Michigan and Georgia, they're already pretty much confirmed. They can't get more than one loss on the season, so they're pretty much in it. So for the SEC, I've got Georgia. They should have a pretty easy victory against LSU, 40-20 for LSU. They fell all the way to 14th after that loss versus Texas A&M. And then you have the ACC Championship, Clemson versus North Carolina. I think Clemson gets it done. I think their defense, which historically has been pretty good, I think they do enough to beat North Carolina. And then, but who knows? Clemson could just be battered by their, Carolina rivals. They went against South Carolina. Who knows? They may lose against North Carolina. It's very possible. And then you have the Pac-12 championship, Utah versus USC. USC's only loss of the season so far. And I'm thinking it's quite possible that that's going to happen again. Kind of feels like one of those, not trap games, but games where the underdog is favored. And I think that is the case in this one. So I think Utah can get it done and force USC out of the playoff. And then Big Ten championship doesn't really matter all that much, but Michigan should be able to beat Purdue. Purdue's been a pretty solid team this season. They're still not ranked. I expected them to sneak in the rankings, but they are the only unranked team on this list, interestingly enough. And then in the American Conference, this would sound like a New Year's Six battle. It's Tulane versus UCF. I think Tulane gets this one done. They've just shown that they're better throughout the entire season. So I've got Tulane in that one. And then in the Big 12, TCU going against Kansas State. And I think TCU does pull this one off. They already beat Kansas State earlier this season. So I think TCU gets the win there. And then for the NFL picks, pretty good game on Thursday night where we have the Bills going against the Patriots. I expect Josh Allen and company to win that one in what should be a good game. And then you have the Steelers, who have been trending upwards a little bit after a win last week. I think they will be able to beat the Falcons. The Packers really have been struggling. They're going against their rivals to see if they can get the win. They historically have been very dominant versus the Bears, but who knows? And then the Jaguars, they've been trending upwards. I think they have 4 wins now, going against the Lions. Teams have similar skill in this one, but I think the Jaguars can get it done. I think, Trevor Lawrence is really bringing a needed spark to this team. And then the Vikings going against the Jets. The Jets, they took Zach Wilson out. He wasn't doing well. Now they're with Mike White, and I think they've really been doing better. They're 7-4 now, which is crazy. But I think the Vikings get this one done. Quite the season for the Vikings as well. And then let's talk about the NFC East. Crazy. Washington is the worst team there, and they're 7-5. So quite the division there. But I think Washington beats the Giants. They have really surprised a lot of people this year. And then the Eagles, they faded after that loss to Washington. They're not as dominant anymore. Probably still a top 3 team in the league, but going against the Titans, that may be a closer game. And then the Ravens, they really need to pull things together a little bit, because if they keep losing games, they're going to fall out of the playoff picture if they're not careful. But they should be able to beat the Broncos. Russell Wilson just unable to do anything to turn that team around, and they've really struggled. And then the Browns going against another bad team, the Texans, who have been rebuilding for what it feels like they've been rebuilding for 5 years now. So it should be a win there for the Browns. And then you have the Seahawks going against the Rams. Rams, they have completely fallen off this season compared to the Super Bowl victory of last year. So the Seahawks may have a chance to absolutely dominate the Rams in that game. And then the 49ers, who have looked very good this year. Their defense, as usual, has looked very good. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo is not the dream quarterback, but they have Christian McCaffrey now, so at least they have a good running back, and they can do something on offense. Dolphins, they've looked really good as well. They've got quite the receiver core now with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But I think 49ers, they win this one. Should be a very interesting matchup there. Chiefs going against the Bengals. Bengals, obviously, they were in the Super Bowl last year. Started off poorly. They're really rising up. They have 7 wins now, and that should be quite a game. And then you have the Chargers, Raiders. Chargers have really underperformed this year, but I think they slipped past the Raiders in that one. And then you have the Cowboys, who have really impressed this year, going against the Colts. Should be a pretty easy win there for the Cowboys. And then Monday Night Football, you have the classic matchup of Buccaneers and Saints. Saints, even though if the Bucs are usually better, the Saints always seem to pull out that wins. But, the Saints really have been looking especially bad this season. I know the Bucs have not looked great as well, but I think Tom Brady and the Buccaneers can pull that one out in a relatively defensive game, as those matchups are typically. So that is going to do it for this video. Please make sure to subscribe and like. And this is the Sports Spiral.